pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I hope everybody finds tonight's meeting and has had a good New Year's holiday, a safe and joyous one, hopefully. Welcome to our first meeting of the year, and with some old text to read. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube page within 24 hours after the conclusion of the meeting. For those who would like to join the meeting remotely for the purpose of public comment at the beginning and end of the meeting, you can use the Zoom application on your computer, smartphone, or tablet. Tonight's webinar ID is 909-174-0347. If you would like to participate but don't have any of those devices or wish to use a telephone, you can do so by dialing 888-475-4499, and once again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. The posted agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I'll start tonight's meeting by asking if there's any public comment from the board this evening.
None.
None.
Any public comment from the public this evening? Okay, any announcements?
Two announcements. First was one that was a couple of weeks ago announced. It's the COVID-19 vaccine booster clinic that's being held at St. Anthony's Church Hall in Shirley, Mass. at 33 Chapel Street. And this is through the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. And so this is tomorrow at 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And people aged 18 and older can receive a Moderna booster shot, which is 6 months after they're completing their last series. And you have to bring your photo ID, COVID-19 vaccine card, and health insurance card. And you can sign up by appointment, and this information is on our website as well.
Thank you.
And on Facebook. The second announcement is the Parks Commission is holding their second community meeting on Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. in this meeting room, and which is also going to be held via Zoom. So if you cannot participate in person, you can participate remotely, and it will be facilitated by WOLA, their landscape architect. And the Zoom link is on their agenda, which is on the town website as well.
And the topic?
Is Marshall Park.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at 7:05, we have a joint meeting with the Housing Authority to conduct an interview and to vote to fill a vacant Housing Authority tenant board member seat. The applicant before us, or the interviewee, is Wayne Curran at 131 White Street. And if appointed tonight, his term would be to expire 2023. So, if it might be easier if you can come to here, and then you don't have to stand at the podium. If somebody can come up with him and just grab the microphone, just so we can speak with him. If you feel comfortable standing at the podium, that's fine too. It won't be that long. So the first thing I'd do is just introduce yourself and your address, even though I've stated both, and then say why you want to be on the Housing Authority as the tenant member.
My name is Wayne Curran. I live at 131 White Street, apartment D1, Lunenburg. And I just think it'd be a good idea for somebody at the complex to be involved with what goes on in the city, to keep people informed of what they need to know. So That's basically why I'm here.
How long have you lived there?
A little over a year and a half.
Okay. And have you gone to any of the Housing Authority meetings or?
No, I have not. Stanley, the previous guy, was keeping me informed of what was going on and everything else. Unfortunately, Stanley passed away.
I heard, yes.
So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to fill his seat.
Okay. Have you spoken to without going to the meeting, have you spoken to people on the Housing Authority? And you know what's required, though, from your conversations with Stanley, I'm assuming?
But not fully. He never fully explained what the job title actually includes.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I need to find out tonight.
Sure. I'll open it up to the board, if any board has any questions for Mr. Caron.
I don't. I'd just like to thank Mr. Caron for stepping forward and volunteering. It's always appreciated when community members step forward and volunteer their time.
Appreciate it.
I'll echo Mr. Dwyer in that regard. Thank you.
I do have some questions. Have things gotten better over there in the last 6 months? I know that we had some complications coming into the beginning of the
Well,
year.
I think a lot of what happened over there was a lot of miscommunication on not only the residents, but management. Unfortunately, some people didn't understand that they were blaming the maintenance guy for the changes that were being implicated. And like I tried to explain to some of the residents, what was really going on is upper management making policy changes and leaving it on the maintenance man to be the heavy. And this is where I think they need to post the notices a little better than they do. And they also need to include the residents in some kind of a verbal discussion, which they now have. They have I forget her name, excuse me for that, that actually helps with the explanation. She is available at the rec center, at the Housing Authority, I believe on Wednesdays. She's there, and that helps. So hopefully that'll improve a lot of it. They make policy changes and then people don't inform people properly. And I think that's where this woman has come in, because she's the one that negotiated kind of the peace between Stanley and his group and the Housing Authority. And a lot of it was trivial. It just got taken out of context, in my opinion. Part of it was over bird feeders, which got outlawed by Fish and Game anyway. The other part about it was people buying their own like flower pots and stuff and putting them anywhere they felt like on the property without checking with maintenance. And that caused an issue. A lot of stuff got removed and people got fingers pointed and you owe me money for removing my tree or this or that. And a lot of people just didn't understand. Again, miscommunication from management to tenant about outside plants. They've since rectified that. A lot of people are not happy about it, but so it is what it is. I understand it because I understand those are stucco buildings, and what was happening is people would put flowers in front of their windows and the plants would grow up under the stucco and break it out. So they kind of outlawed flower gardens. Yeah. Except for the ones that are pre-existing. So, as tenants move out, they remove the flower gardens. And I understand it. They have to, they have to maintain those properties. And being low-income housing, I know it's expensive on their part to do, all the maintenance, utilities, everything else. And I understand where they need to do it. But again, they need to communicate with their residents a little bit better about policy changes instead of just a written notice with no explanation.
All right. That's good to hear. I mean, the members of the Housing Authority are seated behind you, and while I don't know all of them personally, I do know of them, and I think that they're all very capable people.
Yes.
And it seemed as if there's probably been a lack of communication on the residents' part and
That's why I said it's a
to-
two-way street.
the board with their concerns. So I'm hoping that you will be that bridge.
Myself,
That would be helpful.
that's kind of why I'm here. And, you know, as I told somebody in the past, I've played devil's advocate more than once. And I try to always find a peaceful workaround, you know, to make sure both sides are happy. You know, so,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
I would open it to the Housing Authority if they have any questions for Mr. Carone.
Some of the questions
Uh,
you asked, like how long,
If you would ask it at the microphone, just so everybody at home could hear.
how long he's lived at the Housing Authority. And I had a chance to speak to Mr. Karen before the meeting started. And I've always felt, since I've been elected on the Housing Authority, that we need to have a resident. Because, this is not where we live every day, but it's where they live every day. So if things come up, lots of times you can, cut them off at the pass and whatnot. And Mr. Karen sounds like a man who is willing to go the distance to work with us and the residents. And I think life's going to be a lot easier for everybody. So I'm in favor of him.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else from the Housing Authority?
Oh, no, if you want to say something, please feel free.
Do I have to get up?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, I had to do it, you're going.
It's for the people who are watching at home. The people who are watching at home, they won't, the mic doesn't pick up that far away.
I'm really confused because I've been on the housing board a long time, and we set policy, and the biggest change we had is when we had that awful fire,
Yep.
and a lot of things changed, and we had a no smoking policy, and that was the first one in the state that went in. Jean was our director then. And it's been revised and revamped, and there's different people there, obviously. And I think that was the biggest problem a lot of them had, is because they couldn't smoke near the building because it gets in, and other people have problems. And we have meetings, and obviously we've had Zoom meetings, and they don't come. But even when we had meetings, a lot of people didn't come. And the Leominster Housing does a great job because they handle a lot of housing. They get a good deal for their money. And when something happens, they have other staff to come over and help them. Like with the fire, they had a lot of people come over to help those people displaced. And when things break down, they have other people come over. So it's improved a lot since then. And now we have like the hot water. Well, it's 10 years old since the fire, and it needs to be fixed, and a lot of people can't do that. So I don't know what to say other than sometimes I think they get a bad rap because some people aren't happy. And maybe
Who's
they're not.
they? Who's the they?
Well, at the last meeting, I heard a lot of people.
You said they get a bad rap. I'm asking who gets a bad rap.
The housing authority
Oh,
itself.
okay.
Because it's like, it made us sound like we don't care, and we do care. But we only set policy. We make sure the bills are paid. We question the bills to make sure we're paying what we need to pay. And I just, I think it's a nice place. I visited, we finally got to go, and they've done some major changes in the community building. Looks great, we're doing more. And it's doing really well, and they're improving a lot. So, I don't know what to say to you. Most of the people there seem very friendly, very nice. And if they have a problem, they come. But they call, and they get like a work order now. And so most of them are easy. They lock themselves out or something like that. Some are big, or their lights out. But I just think sometimes they get, it's not bad. It's small. If we could make it bigger, that would be happy. It's about the size of my kitchen. But, so I think Mr. Karen will be a great addition. He seems very friendly. He worked the elevator. What can I say?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi there. I'm the newer member of the committee, too. Being in housing,
Say who that is.
Kathy Clark, 275 Cross Road, being the newer member and being in housing, there is such a shortage, as we know, in housing. And I think it has just been a level of communication between, as has been pointed out, between tenants and management. But the policy setting, I think going forward, is going to be a better process. And I think we're all kind of in agreement about that. So I think he's going to be a welcome addition. We do have one other opening on the board. So if anybody else wants to join us, we would welcome it, so.
Is that on your list of vacancies?
One other, that's the state
John.
appointed.
Okay. Yes, you're right.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
state
Okay.
appointed, okay.
Okay.
Well, still.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What? Sure.
Ms. Clark, I appreciate your comments completely. That, you know, when I was contacted by residents, I think that was in the springtime, you know, I managed property too. That was my takeaway as well, was that it wasn't that there was a, you know, the facility is fine. It just seemed to be the rolling out of policies that weren't communicated effectively. And so then there was, you know, a lot of hard feelings. And, you know, my pushback on the residents was there's a housing authority that they need to talk to, and that's their first step. And that, you know, that they have to work with you guys. And I'm hoping that they have in the interim time. I haven't heard anything else from any residents over there. So I'm hoping that they've resolved that. And it's good to hear that the communications are going well. My communication with Mr. Gold was less than professional. I did not find him to be very professional in his communications with me, but it's good to hear.
We have a supply chain issue because they were supposed to have their smoking thing, but it's not here. So it's like, along with everything else in the pandemic, that
Yeah.
upset a lot of people.
My problem, I'm an ex-smoker. The housing authority themselves, their office runs the house and put out a survey to the tenants. 85%, I think it was 87% of the tenants said no issue with smoking, as long as, you know, it's not on the porches and they're 20 feet from the building, which is required by federal law, 20 feet away from the building. Well, they used to smoke behind the rec room, which, you know, is open area. It's 20 feet away from all the building. Now they've taken this little glass top table, some plastic chairs, and stuck it in the field all the way in the back with a little pop-up umbrella for them to go smoke at. And, you know, some of these tenants are in their 80s. And, you know, I mean, I watched one woman the other day hobbling all the way back to the smoking area at the back of the complex with her walker. You know, not a rolling walker, one of the cage walkers. I mean, make it a little more accessible. Where it was before was in compliance with federal law. It was more than 20 feet away from all buildings. And they used to do it like a social gathering. A lot of these people would sit at the table or sit in big chairs and, you know, have good conversations. Non-smokers would join the group and talk, this and that. Now they've got them, like I said, stuck at the back of the complex. You know? And when 87% of the residents there said they don't have an issue with smoking, why does housing authority there? We got a notice that at some meeting they elected to basically go to a non-smoking facility, and they're treating these people like red-headed stepchildren. Now they're out in the field in the back of the property, and come on, in freezing cold weather, everything else, at least up by the rec center, you had a building here in the rec center. So there's kind of a wind block. Now they're basically sitting out in the wide open. And like I said, some of these people, you know, range between 55 and 80 plus years old. Where's the consideration?
Well, it sounds like you're the right person for the job. That's the first thing. And
Like
so,
I said, I don't have a problem playing devil's advocate.
well, and you obviously don't have a problem articulating what the problems are, and that's good. So
Like I said, since I was unfortunately, I lost like the last 4 months. I went in for an open heart surgery at the beginning of August. center, improper wound care. I wound up doing almost 70 days in the hospital. I had all total 6 operations. I had a 1 in 10 chance of survival because of the severe infection. I've lost a lot of bone. I have a lot of issues, but I did miss a lot of what was going on at the complex, like Stanley dying. I came back from the hospital and found out he died like 4 days before I got out of the hospital. That was a total shock. But again, my biggest concern was the lack of communication between Leominster Housing Authority, which oversees Lunenburg, and the residents. Well, now, like I said, forgive me for not remembering this woman's name. I will have it next meeting. And I know she comes out to the complex. She's the one that negotiated the peace between Stanley's group and the Housing Authority about what went on earlier this spring. Fish and Game made it easy when they outlawed outside drinking. That eliminated a lot of the problem. A lot of it is just misunderstanding due to miscommunication or lack of. And that's my biggest problem, is that they need to communicate better with the residents.
I agree. I think that,
It's not like the private sector, low-income housing. They have, their management teams have everything, da-da-da-da-da, and they have, they police themselves. They have monthly meetings with the residents, and they take care of it in-house. Housing doesn't seem to do that. I'm hoping with this new woman that they appointed to come over, I think that's what they're trying to do, is that she comes over, hears any grievances, whatever, and takes it back to the Housing Authority, back to Leominster Housing, and trying to get a better road of communication.
good. Yeah, I think that 90% of problems are miscommunications or communication problems anyway. So I thank you for coming forward, for volunteering. This is a joint, unless somebody has another comment or anything, this will be a joint vote from, how many members do you have here? 3? Okay. I didn't know how many people were in the board, and us 4. So first of all, I would entertain a motion regarding Mr. Caron's appointment to the Housing Authority.
I move to appoint Wayne Karen to the Lunenburg Housing Authority with the term to expire in 2023.
Oh, a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries? Aye for me. I will ask you to take the roll call for your,
I make a motion to accept the mistake.
you don't need a motion, it's a joint motion. So you just have to, just roll call vote your committee.
Well, you can't say aye, you have to be sworn in.
Okay, so I think that's unanimous. You have a unanimous appointment. The next point of order would be to, or the next thing you should do is go see the town clerk to get sworn in, and that would make you official for the Housing Authority's next meeting, which I'm sure they should get your email address and let you know when that is. Congratulations, good luck on the board.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you to the Housing Authority members who are here voting with us tonight.
See most of Jeopardy.
Okay, it's 7:10, an application for an amendment to license 89223-PK-0636, change of officers of the Global Montello Group Corporation, doing business as Honey Farms, number 3829 on 134 Leominster Shirley Road. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Aida of McDermott, Quilty & Miller, 28 State Street in Boston, here on behalf of Global Montello Group Corp., which does business as Honey Farms. This is an application for a change of officers, so there's no changes to the ownership or to any of the day-to-day operations. This was brought about on account of some resignations, retirement, and an untimely death. So there are 3 officer positions that are changing. I will summarize those really quickly for you. The treasurer is going to be Margaret Nykrish. The secretary will be replaced with Sean Geary. And the CFO will now be Gregory Hansen, and he was the former treasurer of the corporation. So other than those changes, there are, again, no changes to the ownership or no changes to the day-to-day operation. So again, anytime there's a change, we're required to come in front of the board for approval, and then on to the ABCC for final review and approval as well.
Can you just go over those three changes
Sure,
again?
absolutely. So the secretary position is changing. It's going from Gregory Hansen to Margaret Nycrash. The secretary position is changing from Edward Fanuel to Sean Geary. And the CFO position is changing from Daphne Foster to Gregory Hansen. And again, Mr. Hansen was the former treasurer.
Okay. Madam Town Manager, they have filled out all the proper paperwork,
Yes, everything's in order.
fees all paid. Are there fees to be done with these? Or this is just paperwork?
To the ABCC.
The ABCC fee was, yeah, the receipt's in there as well.
Okay, I will pass down the, please keep the clip with it if anybody wants to look through the file. I would open it up if anybody has any questions.
None.
I have none.
It looks pretty pro forma, so I would entertain a motion regarding the changes, change of officers of Global Montello Group Corporation as presented this evening.
I move to approve the change of officers.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None?
Okay, thank you very much.
Easy.
All right.
Let me, when can he, this is going to get submitted to ABCC, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you had sand that down, is only one of us has to sign this? Or all of us?
That top form.
All of
But
us
is it
have to
all
sign?
of us? It has only one signature thing.
Generally, I
If there's
think
only
everyone,
one signature line, and that's the chair.
No,
Generally,
just
all
sign it on the
sign,
way
but-
down. Just go ahead.
We can't be wrong if we all sign it.
Right. They're not going
lines,
to turn
so
it
it's just
away.
yeah.
It's totally oversigned.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
you too.
Thank you.
There's no such thing as oversigned, there's only undersigned.
Underwritten, I've never heard undersigned. We the undersigned. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, a 7:15 update from the skate park is going to get rescheduled because there were some absences and illnesses of people wanting to present, so that will be on a future meeting. Interviews, appointments, reappointments. So we have the revote, the ratification of the town manager's appointment of a full-time officer, Joel Ortega, which to be made effective July 25th, 2022. I'll let you explain that.
Yes. So Officer Ortega was supposed to enter the academy this January, but due to his mother becoming ill, he needed to take care of his siblings until what should be July. Should be able to enter the academy in July. So I'm asking you to revote the ratification of his appointment effective July 25th, 2022. And this is recommended to me from Chief Gamble, and in his words, and I'm sure it was evidence when you met him that night, he's worth the wait.
So I will entertain a motion regarding that revote due to the situation presented by the town manager.
I move to ratify the appointment of Joel Ortega as a full-time officer effective July 25th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Ratification of the town manager's appointment of van driver Benjamin McGinnis.
Yes, so I'm asking the board to ratify this appointment. It's for our van driver.
This is
Benjamin-
Mart?
Yes.
Okay, Mark.
Yep. So it's 1 day a week, 8-hour gap that will be filled by this van driver. Thanks, Sue.
Good evening.
Hi, Susan Doherty, Director at the Council on Aging. Excuse me. Yes, 1 day right now. Currently, our Monday driver has semi-retired, but he's agreed to stay on per diem so that if we get stuck, for a driver, we can call him up anytime and he's local. So he'll still be on the books, but Mr. McGinnis will come on as one day a week on Mondays and fill in as needed for the other drivers too. So, and we had one other candidate, and Mr. McGinnis, we decided on hiring him. He had the best qualifications, and I think he's going to do a great job.
Thank you. So I'd entertain a motion regarding the ratification of the town manager's appointment of the van driver Benjamin McGinnis.
I move to ratify the town manager's appointment of van driver Benjamin McGinnis.
Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Town manager report.
Announcement of existing vacancies. There are 2 vacancies on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, 2 vacancies on the Economic Development Committee, 1 person who is recommended by the Open Space Committee, and 1 ex officio member that is a business owner, 1 regular member vacancy, and 2 associate vacancies for the Green Communities Committee, 2 vacancies on the Stormwater Task Force for citizen at large positions, and 1 associate vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And anyone interested can receive a application form that's found on the town website. Fill it out, submit it to the Select Board's office, and the board would take it up at a future meeting. Current employment opportunities with the town. There is a part-time benefited digital service staff librarian position, a part-time assistant to the sewer business manager position, a full-time benefited principal assessor position, a part-time non-benefited position for a trash and recycling coordinator, and 2 videographer part-time non-benefited positions. And those job postings are located on the town website as well for more information and how to apply. I'll skip over that first one because that's an agenda topic. 30 School Street landscape design project update. The architect received a total of 36 responses from the survey, and he is putting together a second survey based on the results from the first survey that will be shared once it's finalized. The working group, which includes the police chief, fire chief, DPW director, land use director, assistant town manager, and myself, met on December 23rd. We previewed 2 conceptual plans and provided feedback on public safety aspects, maintenance aspects, and access and parking. And these notes have been forwarded to the board today. And the next community meeting, it will be held on January 18th at 7 p.m. in this meeting room, which is also a hybrid meeting, can be accessed via Zoom as well. And the architect will present 2 conceptual designs and their cost estimates at this meeting, and the goal is to select one of those as the preferred design. He has also created a flyer for this meeting, which will be distributed via through the Ledger, the town Facebook page, the website, and townwide listserv. Update on COVID. The weekly update from the Board of Health on the total number of new cases reported as of December 25th was 71, and the positivity rate was 7.39%. I attended a Department of Public Health's webinar today, and it was reported they are finding this, the Omicron, to be generally milder variant than the Delta and previous variants, but they're seeing reinfection of those who've had Delta even within the 90-day window with Omicron. But the incubation period is slightly shorter than the Delta variant and previous variants. Those were kind of some highlights. That's all I have for my report tonight.
Okay. Any questions for the town manager?
Yes, please. With regard to the principal assessor vacancy, are there inquiries on it? Like, how are the functions of the principal assessor being executed presently? It's kind of got me nervous, having come from that board, so.
So we have the temporary.
Oh, right, okay.
Rena Sweezy
Okay.
was appointed. She's filling
That's
that
right.
role right now.
That's right. Okay, yes. So that right. I do recall that, and very competent hands. So
Yes.
thank you.
But continue to answer all tax questions online as you have been, Mr. Franco.
Oh yes. Okay.
No, you should go to the Board of Assessors, do not go to Mr. Franco, so just.
Yeah, yes, I appreciate that redirection, because I
Yes.
don't need that.
Okay, current business. Number one, an encroachment on town property at the rear of 993 Massachusetts Avenue. So do you want to set this up for us, Madam Town Manager?
Yes, so let me just unmute Mr. Oliva's here, the DPW director, to join us via Zoom as well.
Thank you.
So this is a property where there are encroachments on town property within the right-of-way. If you're going down Memorial Drive, on the backside of 993 Mass Ave are some boulders up near a hedge property. And so the DPW director, first notice of trespass or encroachment was mailed to the property owner back in June. And with no response from that, the DPW director and I met with the property owner to see if those boulders could be moved voluntarily. There was resistance to that request. I followed up again by phone with the property owner, where she relayed that she would move them, but they have since never been moved. So we requested an opinion from town council on which he discussed briefly our prior meeting on the options that avail the town, which he's provided in writing for the board, and we received that today. So it's in your Google Drive as far as those options. And the DPW director is here as well to provide feedback on his point of view as the director and what this means for the right-of-way and operations for the DPW.
Just for the record, the property owner was notified of tonight, this
Yes,
appointment?
twice.
Okay, and did we get any response at all?
No.
Okay. When you say after the first notice that was sent in June that indicated of the trespass over our right-of-way, was part of the resistance to a solution because they disagreed that they were in the right-of-way?
No.
So they're not, the property owner is not claiming that our survey was incorrect?
No, that wasn't one of the responses.
Okay.
She was also, as part of that letter, she was provided a copy of the survey that was done. So it's clear, and everyone has a copy of that survey, that the rocks are well within the town right away.
So part, I will read in part, I'm not going to read the whole opinion by town council, but encroachments onto, into, or upon property owned by the town, e.g. the aforementioned right-of-way, constitute continuing trespasses and are actionable in a court of law. So these actions are commonly brought into Superior Court. That is our right to petition the court to issue a preliminary injunction that would actually get this expedited. We are trying to work with the property owner to get these moved. The nature of the issue from town officials, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Oliva for his opinion, but, well, maybe I'll ask his opinion first. So, Mr. Oliva, what is the problem with the boulders from a DPW's director's point of view being in the town's right-of-way?
So operationally, it's obviously snow plowing becomes an issue when you have something that close in the right of way and quite frankly fairly close to the edge of pavement. Obviously damage to our equipment, possible injury to our drivers if you strike one of them hard enough. If we need to work in the right of way, obviously they're in the way, we'd have to move them. But the biggest thing for me is the plowing and maintenance within the right of way. Additionally, we've, both town manager and I have been informed that There's been damage to vehicles that are parking along Memorial. So they present, other issues as well as day-to-day kind of operation within the right-of-way.
Thank you. Yes, those are noted in the town council's the opinion to us that not only do they complicate snow plowing, as our DPW director has said, but it also impedes roadside parking, interferes with maneuverability and consequently safety for motorists and emergency vehicles alike, especially with the roadway's adjacency to the senior center. So this has been noted to the property owner. We have all the surveys we need to do this. We have tried to work with them. They have thus far refused to move them. And you've all seen the opinion of town council about what his recommendation is. There's basically two choices. We go to court and we get an injunction to force the property owner to move them, or we move them ourselves, but that of course risks other issues of our own encroachment onto property that he would not recommend. I, for one, would agree with his assessment that that is not something I want to get into, getting near somebody else's property, but we can have boulders that interfere with the right-of-way, which are clearly illegally there as a trespass, to remain. I will open it up to the board.
I reluctantly concur that deferring the town council's recommendation is the better part of wisdom, but I just want to say personally, I'm really sick of hearing about these boulders, and I think the non-response is absolutely unconscionable. It's completely insane. There, I think I basically said my piece while remaining within the bounds of civility.
I agree with the last part of what you said, but the first part
With civility?
unconscionable. I think the first part of I don't agree with. I think we need to resort to self-help. I mean, this problem has been going on for a while, and my understanding is that these boulders were intentionally put there to stop people from parking, and they're placed in the right-of-way, and the largest impact is on our senior community. And so, my mother just was recently in a car accident, and I have to say, it was a very frustrating process to go through, with how annoyed she was, and she's down in Memphis, and just the whole process of trying to help her get her car fixed and do an insurance claim. While for us, for me, that seems pretty straightforward. I think her patience as she's gotten older is just not there, and I think that's representative of a lot of people. So for someone to have to go through an insurance claim because they try to go to town property and someone has boulders that are clearly in the right-of-way, they've been told about this for a while, the Council of Aging's been making this request for years. I mean, I think going into court, which could drag on for a while, I think the right answer is to move the boulders and get them out of the right-of-way, either by pushing them onto their property or by picking them up and storing them in the DPW for them to come pick up. To me, that seems to be the better way to go. It resolves our snow plowing issue. We're already in January. It resolves our Council of Aging issue, and we're not talking about a responsive homeowner here who's trying to work with us. We're talking about someone who's ignoring us. So I don't know, I don't think it would be worthwhile, because once we start the legal process, we need to continue the legal process. And who knows how long that's going to take. So I'd rather just move them, and if they want to sue us because we damaged their boulder, I think we deal with that. Or one of how many boulders are there over here? About 12, and then we deal with them.
Mr. Dwyer, any comment?
Sure. I read the advice from Attorney Costa, and he's recommending the prudent course and with litigation, because as he states that, often you can be provided relief within days or weeks. This has been going on for quite some time, as everyone's alluded to. I don't feel strongly against using self-help. In fact, I tend to agree with Mr. Jeffries that I think self-help would be, I'd be in favor of it. Pick the boulders up, put them at the DPW yard, let them know where they're at, and they can come pick them up at their discretion.
I just want to chime back in and just say, while I said it was the better part of wisdom to follow town council's advice, I could be convinced on the self-help remedy.
You should not allow yourself to be convinced on the self-help remedy. With all due respect, my colleagues, I think, are not, I'm not fully weighing the liability that would happen in return. It doesn't stop legal action. It just changes who the plaintiff and the defendants are, and it's going to cause us the same thing if the encroachment is deemed in such a way or something happens. Like, you could think that you can't take the boulders because that would be a theft of property. So you can't do that either, probably, and they could argue that. There's a lot of things you can argue. The best way to do it is to do it legitimately and force them by court edict to do it. Now, he's saying to there would be fairly quick because it is an emergency and a safety issue, which it clearly is. I mean, the DPW director says it, and, the fact that it has caused issues with motorists using, not illegally using the side of the road as parking. So I think we would get that, and it would absolve us of having to ever go on the property and touching it. So again, I would urge my colleagues not to choose the self-help route. However, however quickly you think a solution would be come to in that regard. I don't think it would be a quick solution. I think it would be a longer solution. I do want to also comment that notwithstanding anything else, Mr. Jeffrey's comment of intent, there's no evidence of that in front of us, and it's really really at the bottom line is irrelevant to the conversation. The facts are the facts, that we have a survey that shows that the boulders are impeding and on the right of way, which is clearly a trespass. That's all that matters. Why they were put there, I don't have to come up with a reason why they were put there. It doesn't matter why they were put there. The point is they're there, and we can point and show a survey that indicates they're there as a trespass. So, Madam Town Manager.
Yeah, I would just like to, I agree that I believe what town council is recommending is definitely the more prudent course of action, and you could end up, if you followed the self-help option, you could end up with the boulders right back in the same position, and then we'd have to go that route anyway. So I think it's that course of action is the preferred action, and what town council said previously as well, Selectman Dwyer said, was that this could take a matter of weeks to occur for this type of situation. The other thing I think you would want to consider is to be consistent with how other encroachments around, that we have going around town will be handled as well. We're not going to be going on all those properties to remove those structures and items. So I think to be consistent, you would want to follow the same course.
So, I think that reasonable people disagree, right? And so, I think that we can all consider ourselves reasonable and come to different conclusions. So I don't want to take anything away from what you said, Mr. Alonso, but I just don't agree. To the town manager, I recall a previous report from you that indicated that your conversation with them and why the boulders were there, and that's why I spoke to the intent. As have many other residents of our community, I think, especially with the Council of Aging, approached the owner about this concern. The legal letter that we have is dated from June, and from June to now, the owner has done nothing. You said that you invited them twice to come out tonight. They're not here. Did they send any communication about anything? So, they are fully aware that they're encroaching upon a right-of-way. They're fully aware that it poses a hazard to snow removal, which impacts people going to the senior center, impacts people going to the library from that way. We know that seniors have reported damage to their vehicles, multiple seniors. I'm still where I'm at.
So, has anyone approached the homeowners regarding the self-help option in that we're going to move and said, hey, we'd be happy to move these boulders for you. Where would you want them? Because we'll take them out of the right of way. And have we gotten a response from them?
I'll defer to the DPW director. Our conversation with the resident did include conversation about that. Rob, do you want to expand on that?
Sure. Yep. So when we met with the property owner to discuss the location of the boulders, outside of her concern for the existing arborvitae hedge, she had talked about, pushing them back, or we talked about pushing them back. However, she was concerned about her hedge, and I didn't want to be responsible for that. What option I did present was that we'd be happy to take the boulders for her. And that didn't, I don't remember the exact response we received from her, but it wasn't well received.
I'm sorry, it was what?
Not well received.
Oh, go, okay.
As I pondered this, and the homeowner is obviously not amenable to moving the boulders because they put them there because they want them there, because they didn't want people parking on that right away. But because they're not being amenable, and if we engage the self-help option, that could lead us back to litigation in the first place. Why don't we just go with the litigation and trust Attorney Costa's recommendation that this is the prudent course and just to follow it?
And just to reiterate something the town manager says, the Conservation Commission has identified several properties that have encroachments onto town property. They're not right-of-ways, these are actual on-town property.
Sure.
This is the route we're going to show that we're going to do to all property owners if they're shown by survey to have things on town property. So I think this is the proper way to do it. We're not going to go in and do self-help and remove structures and fences and everything that are on, it just doesn't make sense. This is the way we will approach all of them, I think, so.
I think we have to handle it on a case-by-case basis. Some things, are easy to fix, and some things are more complicated.
If we go in and move it, we are inviting them. They are, I have not spoken with the property owner, but somebody who doesn't want to move rocks that are clearly, without their denial that they're in the right of way. So they're not appealing the survey. They're just, it would be an invitation for them if somebody went on their property and anything happened, they would just sue the town. It's a lot easier, and it makes a lot more of a I think, a point and a shockwave across anybody who this is happening to, that this is the course we're going to take.
What is the cost of town council to file this documentation and follow up with it?
I think he said it was $200 to file.
$200 to file. But if he has to go to court, I mean, what are we going to spend?
He's on retainer.
Right. Is this included in that? I thought this was a separate service.
No.
Okay.
I'll speak to it again. I mean, I said I could be convinced. I haven't necessarily been convinced. So, let's put it this way. Following town council's recommendation can't be imprudent. The other route could be imprudent. And therefore, I will reluctantly, while I, again, will reiterate that I think this is completely insane, it's absolutely poor citizenship. It's just, I'll go with the supporting the injunction route.
Anybody want to make a motion that that's what we should do?
I don't know if I embrace it that much.
Sure, I'll make that a motion. I move that we follow the town council's recommendation to appeal to Superior Court for an injunction to remove the boulders.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I'll support this because it moves forward, but I don't agree that this is the best way forward.
Okay, so noted. All right, all those in favor of that, of directing town
If
council?
I could, just, sorry,
Yeah.
as a point of order, we could still have a unanimous vote if you felt, as a matter of principle, you wanted to abstain. An abstention would not destroy a unanimous vote if you wanted it to be a 3-0 to 1 vote.
Yeah, no, I'll support it.
Okay.
All right, so all those in favor of directing town council to begin action in Superior Court regarding this trespass or encroachment of the right-of-way at 993 Massachusetts Avenue, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Vote to open annual town meeting warrant on January 12th, 2022, and close the warrant on March 21st, 2022 at 4 p.m. Is there any reason why that's highlighted on mine?
Because it was added
Ah.
to the revised.
Oh, gotcha.
agenda.
So basically, this is just opening, we'll open the meeting, it's just taking this vote at this meeting to open the town warrant next week. I think partly that may have been added to here because there may not be a need for a meeting next, well, first of all, I'm going to be away next week. And there was another person out?
There's nothing right now on the agenda.
And there's
for
nothing
next-
on the agenda, so we may want to switch our week off till next week and meet on the, because
I'm all for 2 weeks off.
Yeah. I'll second that.
We can take that as it comes, all right. So, I entertain a motion that we vote to open the annual town meeting warrant on January 12th, 2022, and close the warrant on March 21st, 2022 at 4 p.m.
I move to open the annual town meeting warrant on January 12th, 2022, and close the warrant on March 21st, 2022 at 4 p.m.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 3, ARPA funding for COVID-19 rapid tests for seniors. That was on your town
Yes.
manager report, and
It-
made it an agenda item even.
Yes. I just figured I'd include that update in writing. So last Wednesday, the state announced that municipalities were able to purchase rapid tests through the state contract bid. So since then, I was put in contact with individual Operational Services Division, which is the division that oversees all the state bids and contracts. And she provided me a number of emails for manufacturers and distributors. So I reached out to 7 different manufacturers, distributors, heard back from 2. One of them said it would be a 4 to 8 week lead time for test kits, and the other said had availability to send them immediately. So I submitted an order today for test kits. This is an eligible expense under ARPA, so that's what it would be
How
paid under.
many did we order?
There's about 230 test kits. So I would recommend distributing, the senior center was looking for 100, so allocating 100 test kits for the senior center to distribute, and reserving some for town staff. We've recently had an uptick in number of employees, not me, but with COVID or have been close contacts. So seeing this spike in the very near future, it would help with keeping our employees that are healthy.
Can I inquire, it seems like an odd number, 230.
It was what was in the case.
Okay, so we ordered a
A
case.
case,
Okay,
yep.
gotcha, all right. I was going to say.
Are there 2 test kits per kit?
Yes.
Okay, so there's
Well,
460.
they come in a packet, yeah. So you're supposed to, the directions are you're supposed to test once and then test again a couple days later.
But is there 232
Yes.
test kits?
Right, so
Okay.
this, say, 460.
That was one of those bi-weekly things. I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
exactly
did
how to
ask
say
that
that.
question. I'm like, is this something that if we distributed, a household would get 2 instead of 1? Ideally, it's not the best, because the directions are you're supposed to test once
That's 'cause of
and then
the
test again
false
a couple days.
positive,
Right.
yeah.
Although on the Department of Public Health webinar today, they said if you test positive on an antigen test, you're evident, it's clear positive because you have a high viral load and, but
So you're saying that there's
Nevertheless,
more false negatives than there are false positives?
yes.
If you're, if
Right,
it goes
you're not-
positive,
if
you're definitely positive.
If you're asymptomatic and
Right,
take an
okay.
antigen test, it's more likely to have a false negative.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
So when will we get them?
They were shipping them out immediately, so hopefully this week.
Oh, we remember Prime, did we get it tomorrow?
It's not through Amazon Prime,
Amazon
that's for
doesn't
sure.
even deliver
But,
next day or 2 days.
I know.
What was relayed to me, this is from Operational Services Division, and a couple of the other people I spoke to, the manufacturers, is the demand is so high, as you probably know, and therefore the supply is limited. They're pulling staff from other divisions within their company to handle this, and you have every municipality now that they got that email that they can purchase off these state contracts trying to purchase. So I figured to act fast would be
No,
the
no,
best.
that was a good idea, I agree.
Thank you.
Any questions? So who will be, so the Director of Council on Aging will be overseeing
Yeah.
those 100, and who will be overseeing them here in this?
The town manager's office.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I've identified all the staff that are in buildings that would need, be available to a test.
Okay. Okay. Request from legislators for fiscal priorities for FY 2023. And you have such a document in,
I do.
so if you lead us through this.
Okay. So every year we go through this process because our delegation asks for a list of our priorities, and we provide them a list of 4 items. That's kind of where they want to see the max number of requests, and they like them submitted in order of priority. So last year, our requests were $127,000 for the fire alarm upgrade at Lunenburg Primary School, $355,000 for hazardous materials abatement and demolition of the old primary school building and feasibility and design for future use of that space, $180,000 for fire department's turnout gear, and $40,000 for the installation of new LED lighting fixtures at the library. So we received a $25,000 earmark towards the Lunenburg primary fire alarm upgrade, and they subsidized the remainder of that cost through their budget. So that project can be removed from the list. Also, we received a $40,000 earmark for the LED lighting at the library, so that project would be removed from the list. And the firefighting turnout gear, we, as part of the fiscal 22 capital plan, $100,000 was appropriated towards that, and the fire chief confirmed that he has sufficient funds in his operating budget for turnout gear, so that project would be removed. So the projects that I would recommend to be part of the consideration for the list to the delegation would be projects that fell under the bond bill, Chapter 228 of Acts of 2018, which included $300,000 for the redevelopment of the property at 925 Mass Ave, $250,000 for the upstart cost of a community commercial kitchen for small business owners that need commercial kitchen space, and $450,000 for facade and streetscape improvements in the downtown Main Street area. $371,000 for hazardous materials abatement for the old primary school, and this reflects an updated cost. That's was a capital plan request for fiscal 23. $330,000 for the Flat Hill Road culvert. This would be to subsidize the amount that was appropriated at a previous town meeting, where we had cost estimates that came in much higher than that cost. And $100,000 for the senior center, so for different building improvements at the senior center. And those would be combined capital project requests that were submitted in 23.
$250,000 for the commercial kitchen. Where is that going to be?
The original thought would be that would be for the TC Passios.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that we want to include that because we don't know what's going on with that building. And on the off chance, not that I think it has a high likelihood of them funding that with everything else on the list. but I think we should
Putting
probably.
it out there, I know it's been mentioned a lot in different groups of people around town about the need for a commercial kitchen.
Well, if we don't have it,
choice.
right, but if, and I understand that, but if we don't have a definitive place to put it, then I don't know that we want to risk getting the money and then saying, oh, well, we don't know what to do with it now. All those other projects, we know what would happen. In fact, along with number 3, we should probably look for the Page Street culvert one, too, that's being pitched for the capital plan, so we probably want to add that as a potential.
When would we likely see the money?
It would be next fiscal year.
Right.
Got it.
And so I know I've said this at prior meetings too, those bond bills, we've been told we're never going to see that money.
Right.
So this is why I went, I've looked through the 3 different bond bills. We've funded pretty much all the other projects except for these projects.
Yep.
I know that the parks commissioners are, really kind of working hard to get things in motion at all the parks, and I know that they're creating policies, but would it be helpful to engage them? Because, the parks that we have for our residents on Reservoir Road and the Whalum area need some help, and so maybe an infusion of cash would be helpful.
For the Whalum Park?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Reservoir.
Wallace Park and
Wallace
Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Wallace
Field.
Park got some
Yeah.
money recently, and I'm not going to say that's not the park I was talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about the basketball courts over there and that whole area around the basketball courts that could definitely benefit from a refresh, which is right next to Wallace.
Oh, I thought they
Was that all?
upgraded all the basketball. They refurbished the surface, replaced, I thought, the fence.
I thought they did a bunch of things. I don't know if they
Maybe
did everything.
maybe I need to drive by there again, because I'm thinking when I was there in last summer. When did this happen?
Within the last year.
Okay. And then I also haven't been down to Reservoir Road since that park down there since in the last summer. But my question is, would the parks benefit from money?
We can certainly,
Well, I think that's
we would all benefit.
no, they'd be severely hurt by getting extra money funding to run. Yeah.
Would they benefit from this larger amount coming from the state?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be take the community kitchen out and then replace it with, what Mr. Jeffries has put in, or the Page Street one personally. Only because we don't have a real place for the kitchen right now. It's not certain.
Okay, we're still gonna have to whittle the list down to 4.
Oh, we just have to do 4.
projects.
Okay, there you
But
go.
this doesn't have to be done tonight. We invited the delegation for the first meeting in February. So
When does it have to be done by?
February 1st. So I would say if we can finalize our list to them for that evening, and for discussion, maybe something they add that night may change it. They're also going to the January 13th Finance Committee meeting, the delegation, so they may, the Finance Committee may have some ideas as well, so. But I would at least start with putting together a prioritized list as a starting point. Either we can add to or delete.
Okay. So they may have,
So parks.
or do you want a week to think about it, or could you discern from these items that are listed here what your priorities would be?
I want to hear back from Parks first.
Personally, I completely agree with the request for the Flat Hill Road culvert,
Yep.
as well as the abatement and demolition of the request for the old primary school building. My understanding is...
Completely with that 1 and 2, by the way.
Right, so my understanding on the old primary school, and maybe the town manager can speak to this, is they have appropriated a small amount of money for abatement to the old primary school, is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
50,000.
Do you think that will affect their consideration of that, since they just appropriated some?
That's a good question. Yeah, good point.
If it does, I would still want to include that on the list, but maybe we put it as a lower priority. And then, yet, the senior center, absolutely. The commercial kitchen, I understand your point. If it reminds me of often the U.S. military would have improvements on a base, and they'd have a new building all ready to go, and then they close the base.
Right. So, that's- yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yes, yes. So, keeping that off the list, but still having, I guess where I'm confused on this item, the $300,000 for redevelopment of the property at 925 Mass Ave.
Old gas station.
Yeah.
That's old gas
That's the
station.
old gas station.
Yeah, that's a good,
I agree with that and the street improvements. Or do you want to, have us pick from one of the three in that item?
Yeah, I would say, personally, that's street improvements, because we don't really have a good plan. I mean, we went through the whole Complete Streets
Right.
project, and all that work is done, but that next step and what I think would take a little more planning, to whether you want to put additional lighting in, what storefront stuff. So maybe that one should be last on the
right.
list.
I
or-
totally agree with that, too. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on those. I mean, I think Flat Hill is the most important. We have to get that done. It's a huge amount of money, and it deals with stormwater and drainage and things like that, that supposedly the state wants to do and should be part of the infrastructure bill. I think we go for the hazardous waste, even though they gave us that. I mean,
Yeah.
and then the 300 for the old gas station at 925 Mass Ave, we've been sitting on that, waiting forever.
300,000 would completely, it would breathe life into that project and make it
Yep.
viable and help the town finally get rid of that,
Yep.
that monkey.
Yep. And then the senior center, I'm with you on the parks. I'd like to hear what they feel, if they have a project and a number, because that's the important thing. We need a number for a project, but I'm for that. And seniors, seniors and youth programs get funding because it's great for elections. So we should leverage whatever we can.
I also tried to put in, not that 100,000 is small pennies, but put in a lower dollar amount project in case they, because as you can see from the list up above, the funding that we got was the 40,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was our prior, list of priorities in order. So,
So we can ask Parks, but I think, does anybody disagree, does anybody not share that? Parks is the wild card, so that aside, of the projects that the town manager listed, was everybody okay with the way Todd outlined the
Yes.
priorities?
Yep.
You're okay with it?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so that, do you want us to review it?
yeah, so remove the commercial.
So his order was Flat Hill Culvert,
Yep, I got that. We'll put it-
hazardous waste for Old Primary, 300,000 for the redevelopment of 925 Mass Ave, and the $100,000 for the senior center,
Yep.
and then removing the other two from number one.
Okay.
The community kitchen, and remove the facade and streetscape, as you pointed out. I think we don't have enough of a plan.
Now, if,
And if we can ask Parks, if they haven't, could come up with a number for the parks, the non-Marshall Park, obviously they're addressing Marshall Park.
and if the old primary school, if you think, because they've just given us an earmark, a small earmark for that, if you think it's going to affect its viability, put it lower down in the priority.
I don't think, to be very honest, I mean, I don't think it's going to do much one way or another.
Yep.
Is this cookie jar ARPA money, or is this like real money?
This is, ARPA money's separate.
Is
so
inflation
those-
money, or-
Yeah, this would be, through the state budget.
Okay.
So it goes through the whole state budget process when they're approving a budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on that, or discussion on that current business item? Okay, the next one is just a heads up that, on policies that we want to that we may want to look at. I'll go over them, and you may have some other ones as well. So on the liquor regulations, as came out in the hearing last week, that, or 2 weeks ago, that the manager of any establishment that has a liquor license only has to be there 50% of the time. That's in our licenses. And we may want to look at that and see what it is in other towns. It seems low, 50% of the time. I realize we can't have 100% of the time, but 50 seems quite low for being a manager on premise of a alcohol licensed establishment. You're looking at me.
Well, I'm just thinking if an establishment is open, 10 hours a day, that could be 70 hours a week, so there'd be 35 hours a week they're on premises. That seems pretty much almost a full-time job, right?
Right.
Do you want them there 70% of the time? Then wouldn't they need a different manager? I mean, 50% seems reasonable to me.
Okay. I mean, and maybe that's true. I mean, again, it was brought up, and I'm just flagging it because maybe that's what we come to. I'd like to know what it is. That was something that was noted in the report, that, there was no manager on record when this was happening, and it raised some eyebrows from comments, and that's why I just flag it. But you may be absolutely right. Maybe that is the norm, and maybe asking more was really burdensome for the establishment. That might be true.
I'd like to talk about it.
Yep.
I mean, I agree with Todd. I don't think that 50% is, that we need to go above it. But I would like to talk about some hours, because if your core people are showing up after 8 o'clock, but your manager's always off at 4, then, it's not solving why we have that requirement to begin with.
Right. So there may be other parameters we could look at. Sure. Okay, so that's number one.
I was going to go with that, yep.
Also, the putting in the appeal day
Oh, yeah.
process within the.
Yeah, we need to put in the appeal process in the regulations. For some reason, it's not in there.
Doesn't change that it's a matter of, that is the law, and
Right.
that,
Right. But we should at least reference that
should
any
be
appeals should be pursuant to, and we'll just cite whatever the state law that allows the appeal. Number 2 is boot drive policy. So it's, what we may want to revisit here is that for local, we ask that anybody who's going to participate in boot drives, we ask them that they sign a waiver. But in places that, that large organizations that have people that they are bringing in from outside of town, it may not be feasible. They may not even know till that day who's going to be here. And so we may want to entertain the fact that if an organization has their own umbrella liability policy, that they sign a waiver to the town as an organization and take responsibility of everybody who works for them during those boot drives. I mean, when the skate group or when the Boys and Girls Club in town has a boot drive, they know everybody who's going to be there, and there's no reason why they can't do it in advance, and they don't have their own liability insurance anyway. But for large organizations, it may be burdensome to try to get it, and then still stay within the confines of the policy. So that's something that we can discuss for that. Emergency paid sick leave policy.
that is something I'll ask the board if you can act on tonight. This policy is something that we've already adopted. It's just changing the return to work section of the policy to coincide with the CDC new guidance on the isolation and quarantine
Okay,
days.
so we'll come back to that then.
Okay.
Okay, so let's come back to that if we're going to act on that tonight. The last one that we want to do is
That's fine.
a commemorative policy, which we don't have. That means if somebody wants to commemorate something, we don't have any guidelines.
I drafted something.
Oh, okay, so please
Give you a
read the
starting
draft,
point.
yeah. Read the draft that the town manager put together, and come up with ideas. Well, where is it? Oh, policies, under policies. There we go. Oh. So draft number 1. So read that through. We're not going to do it today. And, think about if we commemorate a team winning something, should there be a time frame that, okay, those signs come down after X amount of time? If we're going to commemorate anything that somebody comes to us to commemorate, we should have guidelines about what that should be, and we should establish that, because there aren't any right now. Mainly, like, do we keep records of them? Because there are things that come to our attention years later that everybody who was involved in the commemoration didn't, there's no file for us to look at. And so we should want to know and have those recorded for us.
I'm in favor of that. Heather, I didn't read it yet. Does this address as well naming things after people in the draft?
No.
Or
No, it's just,
like the signage, like the 2018 hockey?
Yes, that one would be in
It
this.
talks about the cost, installation, when an item has reached its end of life cycle, basically, for different items like trees and plantings, plaques, benches, that type of thing. Signage on the side of the road,
All right, thank you.
but not naming, yeah.
All right, I'll probably propose some revisions.
Okay. Well, no, it wouldn't be to this. That would be another policy, I think.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from on that.
He's not a fan of it.
Me neither. I voted against every one of them. Okay, so everybody's okay with that? We're going to set up a meeting to talk about those policies. Maybe we'll try to stick in one a week so we can just focus on it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so the emergency paid leave. Is this the tracked version that we're looking at? Okay.
So,
So this is an adopted policy already, and you're going to go over just what the changes are?
just what the changes
Okay,
are.
which is on section 5.
Correct. So everything that's stricken and everything that's just underlined is new. So it's just changing the quarantine and isolation periods and definitions to coincide with the CDC's and what the state of Massachusetts adopted as well. They adopted the CDC new guidelines. The only difference is there's no distinguishing between vaccinated and unvaccinated. So they're going to be the same, treated identically. We've seen just as many staff that are vaccinated that have tested positive after being in close contact and were, at first asymptomatic. So treating everyone the same based on our statistics.
Yep, sounds good. Are you looking for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Hold on a second, I'm reading something. Could they make this any more confusing?
It's not easy to, yeah.
I just draw your attention in the newly added section 5 where it says exposure to COVID-19. They talk about day 5 and day 10 and everything, right? But then in the next section, test positive for COVID, not exposure to COVID, but test positive. They don't talk about that. They just said to determine the work date, the positive date is day 0. And the return to work day 5 days after the positive test. But it's not day 5 anymore. So I'm like, why are they making you calculate it in one? And they say it what it is in the first one. And I mean, it's like, do we want people to follow these? Because if you want people to follow these, you really have to know what it says. Anyway, I'm assuming this is given to us language, like we didn't generate this.
Most of it comes from the
Right, CDC, right. Okay,
That explains it.
right, who has obviously been working long hours. Because both of these, but the way I'm reading this, both of these are the same. Like what has to happen to you is the same.
That's what they said today in the webinar. May eliminate a lot of the confusion along the way because there were different isolation and quarantine periods previously. the number of days versus now it's coincides.
Right.
So, but it, yeah.
Anyway, yes, you can make a motion, Mr. Jeffries. I apologize. Thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah, I move to approve the changes to our paid sick leave policy.
Emergency paid sick leave policy, yes.
Emergency paid.
Do I have a second?
policy.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, it is approved. Number 6, sign easement agreement for the Lunenburg Central on Leominster Shirley Road.
That is going to be tabled.
Oh, all right.
There may be some additional changes.
Okay. Approved minutes of November 9th, 2021. Everybody have any questions about those minutes? Everybody read through them.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Can we go back slightly to that policy? I'm just a little confused on,
Yes.
on one thing.
Yes.
So it says if you're exposed, the employees, if they test negative and they haven't experienced any symptoms, they can return to work and wear a mask at all times until day 10. But if they begin to experience symptoms, they must quarantine and can return to work after a negative test result. But in the positive test result, it doesn't say that they need a negative test result.
No, because they've already tested positive.
Right, so they can continue to test, we don't have to wait for a negative test result to, or because,
No, so an employee who has symptoms similar to COVID, they have to quarantine until they get a negative test.
okay, I see the difference.
Then they, yeah.
So they can quarantine and they have to take a test. If
Yep.
the result's negative, then they can return. If it's positive, then they fall into the other category.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
No, it's not. Believe me, it's not easy.
Oh, okay, I understand what your point is now. Yeah, all right. That's what I mean. They didn't make it easier.
And it changes.
Yes. It probably is different, and we just approved it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like buying computer equipment in the mid-'80s. By the time you brought it home, it was obsolete. So, all right, I would make a motion approving the minutes of November 9th, 2021.
I move to approve the minutes of November 9th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Well, okay. All right, warrants. So we have payroll in the amount of $896,818.53. We have payroll deduction warrant in the amount of $51,634.36. And we have accounts payable in the amount of $100,666.86. That can't be good, 666. Should have added one more thing to that warrant. Any action items?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffries?
Liquor violations. I know that we had talked about in the future reviewing our liquor policies, but this one, as we had our hearing last week, I was of the opinion while reading through all the material that as the licensing authority that we should have been informed sooner along the way. And I don't know how to craft this, but I think that I would like to know when we have police interactions at places that sell alcohol. And I'd rather know when they happen or shortly thereafter, and so that way we don't find ourselves in a position where, like, as we had our discussion last week, I said this last week, I was probably at the point of like 3 violations, before it came to our attention. And so I would have acted a lot sooner before it got to the point that it got to. So I would just like to know when we have these issues.
I've already spoken with the police chief about that, and that any future violations be brought to the board.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Because I felt the same way, by the way. So, yes, I was, to be caught kind of flat-footed, saying, okay, I agree with you in your assessment of at least three violations that were not trivial. They were real liquor violations of our policy, and to not be notified of those brings us, because they all come forward at once, makes us look like we aren't doing anything. And that, we as a licensing authority I want to take them seriously. I don't want to impede people's ability to run a business. But I also want to make sure that the policies are there so that people follow them. They're there for a reason. Like, people didn't dream them up one day. Like, they're all there for a reason, and I agree with you 100%.
Following up with that, I also, I understand that it's really important for residents to interact with the town manager. I think it really helps solve a lot of problems before it ever comes to our level. But when there are communications to the town manager's office regarding alcohol, I also would like to be notified of that too. Because it seemed as if several residents, or a resident had commented that several residents had reached out and had conversations. And I mean, I understand that people, when you're trying to remember something, like my anniversary is coming up and I'm like, it's already been almost 5 years. If I had to guess, I would have said like 3. So I know that sometimes timelines, don't always, so it would just be helpful whenever we get a complaint from a resident about an establishment that sells alcohol, that we also are notified of that, even when there's no police intervention. And an email would be great.
Yeah, they would go to Elaine, so I'll let Elaine know that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any action items? Committee reports, Mr. Dwyer,
None.
Mr. Frank,
None.
Mr. Jeffries.
Library is meeting on the 20th, and they are looking to meet remotely. They are concerned about the new virus, and so they're looking to have a remote meeting on the 20th. And I just want to acknowledge that Heather, our town manager, and Julie, the assistant town manager, did a great job working with the library trustees on getting Mira's contract completed. I know that there was a lot of interaction about calendar year versus fiscal year, and making sure that they had the right contract that we were going off of. So really want to thank you, Heather and Julie, for working with Harry on
No
that.
problem. Yeah, they're a great group to work with.
They are.
I got to meet Harry's dog too.
I hear all of you guys have the same breed. So that was pretty interesting.
The capital planning committee met with their final meeting, not final meeting, we could potentially meet depending on what happens between now and annual town meeting, but we prioritized all the projects before us. That list was finalized among all 5 members and is submitted, or will be submitted by tomorrow, to the town manager. So
Today.
that will be available. What?
Brian already sent it.
There you go. So it's already there. So we reviewed all of them, prioritized them 2 weeks ago, had 2 weeks to think about it, did some shifting this evening, and that is all finalized. Old business, the TCP building design. So if you would pass these down. I was given the charge to pulling together a kind of a combination of what Mr. Jeffries had put and what I had done as a preliminary. So I'll just read it out loud and then we can discuss it. So the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, formerly the TC Passios Building Design Committee, will continue to work with any contracted architectural and engineering firms as they become available to review space needs for town offices, school uses, and community space at the building and/or land known as the TC Passios. Additionally, the committee will work to prioritize and rank the existing space usage requests and explore a variety of design permutations at different estimated budget tiers that would meet the needs of the town according to those priorities. The committee is free to analyze, discuss, and investigate other town-owned buildings and properties in their recommendations as they deem necessary to fulfill this charge. This committee will prepare viable, cost-effective solutions to the Select Board that conform to all the town's existing financial and fiscal policies and take into consideration any or all large-scale capital expenditures projected for the next 10 years. Oh, I forgot the word "the." So that is the starting point. And I will open it up for discussion.
I think it incorporates what we discussed at our, I think it was our last meeting.
Yeah.
And I think it captures it. I don't have any recommended modifications.
I think it's good.
Mr. Franco?
I mean, yes, I love, the content is perfectly there. I may have chosen a couple different words, but the ideas are the same, so.
I did forget the word "the," so I did put "the next 10 years" at the end.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said the word permutation besides just
I'm
now.
in programming. I'm in programming. You use the word permutation a
Oh,
lot.
that's a 3 to 4 time a week word.
Nightly at the Franco household.
The Scrabble table?
What's it?
That's Scrabble.
No, there's not enough letters. I mean, to get to the word permutation, you'd have to start with mutation, and then somebody have to add to it. That's the only way you can get to enough
Well,
letters.
we'll use that word talking about, the house project,
Well, if this is okay with everybody, then I will entertain a motion that we adopt it.
I'm
Sorry, I'm going to raise these, I know this is.
Okay, there you go.
so let's do it.
I'm not like a stickler for it, but like instead of free to analyze, like authorized to analyze.
Okay, how about may analyze?
Okay. May analyze, sure. And do we, I guess will work is fine. I mean, rather than shall. Shall would be they must, or.
Well, that came from the
original
charge.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah,
I'm willing to change it.
I'm good.
Just that?
I'm good.
All right, so it's free to is changed to may. I'm going to hand this to the town man. Well, first we'll vote on it. So somebody should make a motion, and then we'll.
Let me formulate a motion. I move to adopt the revised charge for the committee formerly known as the T.C. Passios Building Design Committee, and now known as the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, to incorporate the two changes noted during this draft session, wherein free to is amended to read may, and the word "the" is added prior to next 10 years.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None? I will hand that to you.
All right, and
Do
everything
you want me
else?
to do this and That's just quite a email it motion. to you?
Yeah, I was winging that as, it was just spewage as I was going.
So just notify the committee members
Like, cut it off already.
of the new charge.
Yep.
And nothing else changes, their membership all remains the same.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could ask them if anybody feels like they don't, they can't follow this or don't want to continue service. I mean, obviously, that's always available. They could always resign, or if they wanted to. They don't have to have our permission to, but, definitely we want to tell them this is the new charge.
Also, just bring up, I was invited to the Public Access Committee meeting, which was last night, for the purpose of talking about their space needs and what the plan is. So I just relayed, right now, the Select Board is revising the charge of the committee. Once that's finalized, I could provide to them as well. But that would give provided more parameters as well. But there's, right now, nothing definitive is known at this point. on what will happen at the next.
I mean, to me, their space needs are a priority because, again, people have grown accustomed to their broadcasting of so many public meetings. So I think that it's important that they have the space to broadcast as many as possible. And if they're on one location, instead of them being on the road, which makes the equipment, it's not as high a quality in audio and video as the studio. So the studio should be very close to the town. I was always in favor of that, so.
Right, and like we all know, there's no other available space for them. That's why they're in this limbo
Right.
of what's going to be decided. To move into the Brooks house is not an option. Even this building is not an option if it were vacated.
Yes,
if
up
it's
to
needed.
maybe.
Right, so
Okay.
just want to keep relaying that they're,
Itching?
or, yes. And maybe a little frustrated for
Sure.
timing.
I understand. Well, I think the frustration goes around. There's a lot of frustration on a lot of different parts of this discussion. Upcoming meetings, okay, so on the schedule, we have it. We'll see what's comes up between now and Thursday. I cannot be at next week's meeting, so if there is a meeting, then Mr. Jeffries would be chairing.
I just want to note for the record that it is Darlene's birthday next Tuesday, so, if we don't have a meeting, that would be good.
Brownie points.
If not, then the next meeting would be the 18th, and the 18th is going to be the public hearing for, with landscape artist Ray Dunnitz regarding the old primary school. Public comment from the public. Perfect timing, Mr. Passios.
I really didn't think you'd be this far along. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street, also a member of the Parks Commission. This may be redundancy. I was not able to get into your meeting earlier this evening because of commitments of my own. But I just want to remind everybody that the Parks Commission is meeting this Thursday evening in this room, and we will be meeting with our architects and engineers on the Marshall Park project. And we encourage anybody and everybody to come and express their concerns, their likes, their wants for Marshall Park. That's what our architects are here for next Thursday night, this coming Thursday night, excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment from the board?
None.
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just asking the community, and this is a little bit of an unusual request, but I'm asking for your prayers. So for those who believe in the power of prayer, please pray for me and my family. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, opposed, none. Okay, we will see you potentially as a board next week. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Good night.
Good night.
Recording